Welcome everyone to today's Daily Tune-In. I'm Vidette Mayer. Today is October 26th, and over my night, we had a pretty significant solar flare that erupted from the sun. It was an M class, which I'll talk a little bit in the space weather part of this, but it's really nothing to be worried about. It's simply just kind of a prediction that we will be getting some heavier, higher energies coming in later in the week. So let's jump over to the space weather real quick. It's kind of quiet, so that means that we can really integrate the message for today. So let's get into it. Look at the Schumann. It looks pretty quiet at the moment. Still have these blasts coming in. And it looks as though we're moving into, again, some of those lower densities going to be worked out. This tends to be what our norm is at the moment. A lot of people keep saying, when are we going back to normal? The normal is that we've got to work out these densities that we have. We have been a culture that has completely ignored a lot of the densities of emotional and physical densities. We want to look the other way. We want to ignore it. We want to pump it up with artificial stuff to cover it up. And yet now is the time when we're having to actually get in and do the work on these physical densities as well as the emotional densities. Now, if we go over to the sun here, we had a pretty large solar flare, an M-class solar flare, which is the medium class. It is, actually I pulled it up over here so you can kind of see it. It's a medium size that can cause brief radio blackouts that affect Earth's polar regions. It's nothing too scary, nothing scary at all actually. It is just, again, we can now foresee that we're going to have some energies coming in 2 to 3 days that will be rather intense. These larger solar flares are helping to upgrade us even more. So expect that this little sucker right here is going to be hitting us here and what's today, Tuesday, probably Thursday, Friday. And we'll start to see whether we see it on the magnetosphere or we see it on the Schumann resonance. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Either way, those geomagnetic storms are going to be hitting us. And when the geomagnetic storms hit us, it causes a lot of disruption, meaning upgrades in our consciousness. As you can see here, the magnetosphere is somewhat quiet from the sun-facing side. I do believe that will be changing here in a few days, and yet we still have these heavier pressured energies on the backward-facing side of the Earth. So again, kind of working through the same things we've been working through. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the message is for today. So let's get into that. So as you can see, it's somewhat quiet. We can expect some greater energies that we know are going to be coming in through the end of the week. However, what I want to point out is a lot of times we don't have evidence from the sun that we're going to get these blasts that we get and that do show up on the Schumann. And the magnetosphere shows that there's a lot of energy around our planet. So the interesting thing to take into effect is if it is not, if it's not evidence that it's coming from the sun, then we have to ask, where are these energies coming from? Where are these blasts coming from? And on the ascension journey, we are very much tuned in to the fact that we are multidimensional beings here in the physical form. We know that. We talk about that here on these daily tune-ins. We are spiritual beings, we are emotional beings, and we are physical beings. So we have 3 dimensionalities that we operate in physical form here in our planetary existence, our physical existence. Outside of our planetary existence, there are many, many different dimensional realms of living. Those dimensional realms each have dimensional beings that are part of them. Although we can't always see them, although we can't always, tune into them with our physical senses, we can start to tune into them with our multidimensional sensory capabilities, our psychic capabilities, our telepathic capabilities. So as we ascend into higher frequencies, we are then able to ascend into and connect with higher dimensional beings. Now, we don't want to just go out there and do that, because there is some form of protection. Because there are dimensional beings of high frequencies, and there are dimensional beings of low frequencies, just like there are here on planetary Earth, right? We know that we have high dimensional beings, which are those of, that are light and of love, and we can connect with them and be safe and feel safe. And then there's also ones that are of lower frequencies, who use manipulation and deception in order to kind of get what they want. So there's like these two expressions of beings here on planet Earth. We also have that same expression in our interdimensional realms of existence. So I say that simply because the spiritual message for today is that these higher frequencies this week are really going to be starting to activate our communication with higher dimensional beings, meaning with your higher self, with the guides that are unique to you, the guides that are here to help you, the guides that are here to aid uniquely to you. You have your own team, and that team is going to becoming more and more active. And what I mean by that, because they've always been active, but they're going to be coming more and more into your awareness as these higher frequencies start pulling you up. As you continue to purge those lower frequencies and you start to cleanse yourself, you're going to become a clear vessel. So there will not be those filters of ego that says, oh, that idea is dumb, or where'd that come from, and don't believe that, don't, like all of the things the ego does, it keeps you safe to the messages it knows. So when new messages come in, when you're operating in a denser spiritual place, the ego is in control. So it kind of censors you. Isn't that funny? We have a lot of censorship going on. So the ego will censor what messages you get and what messages you don't get. And it really filters out a lot of the messages from your intuition, from your higher self, that place that is plugged into the universal wisdom, which is they are completely trying to upgrade your emotional quotient, your light quotient. And now, as you continue to purge and you consciously work on these times of integration and looking at everything that needs to be purged from your life, whether emotionally or energetically or physically, because it's blocking you from moving forward, it's going to become more and more of an annoyance, of a pain, it's going to be like a red flag that you cannot ignore. We're going to get to that. Actually, I'm skipping ahead. But your intuition is going to become louder and louder, because what is happening is your telepathic communication. Remember, we've been talking about the pineal gland is starting to reconstitute, so to speak. It's coming back into its aliveness because of the frequency, and I mean like the time frequency, like the amount of light that we are getting. And the amount of these higher frequencies, we can't help but not have our pineal gland start to be reconstituted and come back into full expression. It's gonna be a little bit till it's in full expression, but it's becoming more and more active, and you are starting to get more insights and more ideas and more understandings. Things that you never really saw before are going to become clear. And that's what I mean energetically. It's going to become more it's going to become impossible to ignore the things that aren't working in your life, because you're going to get these understandings where you're just like, man, I never even noticed that before, but yeah, that person is deceitful, and you're going to see it more. You're going to see how maybe a job that you have or something in the world that you see, you're going to just completely see it for what it is. And it's going to bowl you over, and it's going to hurt sometimes. And you're going to think, man, what is going to hurt is going to hurt you, because you're going to say, how did I not see that before? And it's okay. It's because of those filters that have been, and your ego that have been kind of shutting off your intuition so you didn't see it, because it's, no, we're going to stay right here. I keep saying we're going to keep you safe. We're going to keep you going to that job and dealing with that person that you don't want to deal with, but just because that we're safe doing that. And yet now we're getting into a time period where that kind of operating system cannot exist within you, because these frequencies are taking you higher. So these telepathic messages, you're going to start to feel more and more comfortable with them. The more that you hear from your intuition, the more that you get these messages, the more you're going to trust. What's happening is these messages are now coming in, and you are getting more light information. Your light quotient, your emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence is rising. So it's meeting your intellect now. We have, as a collective, had a very, very low light quotient, very low emotional intelligence. No matter where the intellectual intelligence lies, no matter how many degrees one has, it matters, but it matters even more when it's balanced out with the light quotient of what it is that is from universal knowledge. So intellectual knowledge is what you can go out and learn about the world and what you're taught in schools and in our traditional schools and any kind of certifications or whatever that you might have. But the light quotient is universal knowledge and wisdom that can only be learned when we have an active and open pineal gland, when we have an active and open vessel to receive these messages. So more and more these messages are becoming clearer and becoming more and more vibrant. And now we're kind of understanding things in a whole new level. So now this emotional intelligence is really starting to question the intellectual intelligence. So you're going to start to ask, this is where critical thinking comes in, right? You can have all the intellectual knowledge you can, depending on where you learn it. A lot of education is skewed. But when you start to match that with the emotional intelligence and critical thinking, now you start to raise your frequency and raise your total intelligence, your whole intelligence up. And now you start thinking for yourself, because now you're questioning more and more. So the voice that you hear from your intuition, it's exchanging these light codes with you, and it increases your light quotient, and you're going to be getting opening up to greater wisdom that you've never had before. So the ego is still going to be kind of speaking up and questioning a lot, and yet it's not going to be able to have the same impacts, because there's going to be a deeper and a higher knowing of whatever it is that you're questioning, and you're going to say, man, I gotta go do some more research. I've got to go sit with myself from yesterday. Remember, it's not always about going and doing more research. There's a part of that, but there's a bigger part of just sitting with the new information that comes through and allowing it to absorb to integrate into your system. Emotionally, your soul star chakra is getting a massive update. The soul star chakra is your 8th chakra. It's about 8 to 12 inches above your head. And this is your emotional IQ is merging with your soul. So where your ego and your intellect are very much aligned, your soul and your soul chakra are very much now integrating. So the two wisdoms are definitely coming together now. And when those two integrate, they are much more powerful than ego intellect. So you're gonna, again, there's gonna be this massive shift in you from what you typically turn to left brain logic to kind of figure things out. You're gonna be operating more in that intuitive sense, and then matching it and coming in with the intellectual piece. The soul star chakra is your first point of ascended enlightenment. So this is really, again, this is why it's going to be kind of like a I don't want to say a shock to the system, because we think of that sometimes as not always a fun thing, but it could be a shock to the system, because all of a sudden you're going to have these newer understandings that's going to kind of put everything you thought you ever knew upside down. So this is the point where divine loves, that universal love that's beyond anything that we know as humans in the physical form, It's where divine love enters the body and disperses it through all of the chakras. So again, remember I think it was last week we mentioned that our channels are completely getting opened to that universal knowledge. So as this soul star chakra is being activated, it sends energy all through each of our 7 chakras that are in our physical existence. So each of them are going to be getting rebalanced. So again, you're going to have some densities that are going to be worked out in your physical body as those energy centers start to come online. It's going to, if they haven't been healthy or if have been imbalanced, coming back into balance pretty quickly is going to kind of like shift your body a little bit. So you will tend to see a little bit more of a purging process. Maybe some aches and pains more so than normal. Again, I've got this whole thing going on in my head, so there's a lot going on. Physically, your third eye, your intuition, is going to be taking a front seat in your physical life. It will be very hard for you to sit maybe across from somebody or sit in a situation and not to start speaking your truth. Again, with that intuition coming online, you're going to start to be able to see things like you've never have. So therefore, the things that, you kind of were able to ignore before, or the sense that you had about maybe someone who wasn't being truthful, or a situation that you kept trying to you kept giving yourself a story as to why it's okay, it's okay. Those situations, those people are going to be really hard to ignore. You're going to have to speak your truth, and you're going to have to practice speaking from a place where you don't always have evidence. And this is one of the hardest things about speaking our own truth and being courageous enough to do it, because our own truth comes from light knowledge, intellect, the emotional quotient, the light quotient. So we don't always have intellectual evidentiary information to share and say, well, this is why it is. And we deal in a world where people want proof, they want evidence, and you don't have to give evidence. You just simply say, I don't trust this, I don't trust you. You don't have to give an answer, you don't have to give evidence. It's just simply what is. So this is when life can be a little bit frustrating, because you're speaking your truth, you're speaking what is on your heart to speak. Remember, the heart chakra and the soul star chakra are starting to, they're merging, they're becoming one, they're integrating. So all of this upper spiritual knowledge is now coming awake and coming alive and operating from that place in a world that is very physically oriented and intellectually oriented. This is where the struggle is going to happen. This is where the struggle is going to come into your consciousness. And this is where you learn who you are. Because who you are is a sovereign and free being. And from that place, you owe no explanations, as long as it is in the highest and best good for all involved. And you need to speak what you need to speak. Then you allow whatever happens to happen. You surrender to whatever happens, rather than trying to control it. You can't speak your truth and then control everything. You got to speak your truth and allow the chips to fall. This is a massive, massive week for our understanding of how it is to be completely us. And this is kind of the week that shifts it from, kind of dabbing your foot in the water, like dipping your toe in the water like we have been, to this is the week where it becomes, no, this is who I am. This is how I see things. This is my truth, and allow the truth to be what it is. Big week. Take a deep breath. Allow these codes to come in. Allow the trust that you have in these messages from your guides. Your guides are within you. They're not out here. Although I do a lot of this, it's just kind of energetically. We tune in to the universe all around us, and yet the whole thing is coming from within us. So it's really important to get used to having this open line of communication, getting clearer and clearer and clearer, and having faith in it. Thank you for being here today. If you've gotten something from this video, please like it, please share it. Let's get the word out that there is some beautiful work being done in this planet, and our sun is helping us do a lot of this work, and so are our guides from outside and our interplanetary guides from outside of our planet. We're also being helped as well. There's some beautiful things happening, and it's all safe. It's for our highest and best good, no matter what it looks like out there. It is in our highest and best good. Have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah. Bye. If today's daily tune-in brought you value and insight, please consider giving in return for that value by leaving a love offering. All donations go to keeping this platform operating and in service to humanity during these transformational times. To go even deeper into your soul frequency, please consider these offerings. For personal insights into your most pressing questions and concerns, get an energetic insight reading delivered directly to your inbox. To take a quantum leap in your transformation, book a personal session with Vedette. There are several options available based on how deeply you would like to go into your most desired soul-led life. To find more information and to book your sessions, please visit VedetteMayer.com.